Hey everyone, this is Sean. Let's talk about DeepSeek today. It is the most hottest topic on X in the AI industry at the moment. And today's Tuesday. On Monday, I saw Nvidia stock drop by 17%. And then I saw Gary Tan mention on X that he just bought the dip for this incredible dipping point. And also saw a lot of people for thanking DeepSeek for giving them the opportunity to finally having the chance to buy Nvidia. I personally don't think Nvidia is gonna, drop significantly. It's gonna be like a panic attack, just because of the release of this Chinese model. But overall, like it really shocked the entire industry that a Chinese model actually, almost equally performed as OpenAI. And also, they have the reasoning model, which even surprised everyone more because they trained it on, I think, like 70% less of the cost or something like that. And the significance of this kind of work is that because of the fact that in the past few years, the US has restricted export of their latest chips to China, and that caused a lot of, to be honest, pessimism in the Chinese AI industry because a lot of people think that we're not going to have access to the best chips. How are we going to compete with the U.S. and that was reflected on a lot of the startups, right? Because like the startup investors really care about performance, really care about like their return on investment and stuff like that. And this is a huge breakthrough in terms of basically these researchers who are mainly educated in China, by the way, are saying, okay, we lack hardware resources. Let's optimize and innovate the hell out of ourselves so that we can, be ahead on algorithmic side of things. And sarcastically, OpenAI is closed source and DeepSeek is open source. For people who are not familiar with open source, it's basically like you can literally just let's put it in the simple way. You can download it and then host it on your own machine. Like, have you guys heard of Llama, which is like an open source model by OpenAI? By Facebook. I hope it's by OpenAI, by Facebook. And I think DeepSeek was trained on top of that. But they did a lot of their own, algorithmic innovation, and most of the open source models are trained on top of Llama in the past year or two, and it's still really really impressive because, I haven't seen any product that does such a good job in reasoning. After OpenAI launched their O1 model, which they're charging $200 for, and currently with my tier of ChatGPT Pro, I think they limit like the number of times I use O1 for thinking. And by the way, I already unsubscribed ChatGPT. I just want to see, not because I don't believe in ChatGPT, but I feel like there's a free alternative, $200 versus zero, and $20 versus zero. I want to see, how that would affect my life because I'm already paying for Cursor for coding, and for day-to-day conversations I use Perplexity a lot, which has already integrated with DeepSeek R1 very quickly. I actually just tried doing some research about DeepSeek using Perplexity with DeepSeek, which is really good. I don't see any reason for me to subscribe to ChatGPT or Claude because I'm already having enough tools for me to build and ask, right? So yeah, it's significant. Like there's so many points I want to break down to expand. Let's see what we can touch on. Firstly, I think I really want to touch on education. As I mentioned, most of the people on this team were educated in China, and many of them were from a university called Zhejiang University, which is not even like arguably that they're very good. They're like top 3. But there are like plenty of top 3 universities because everyone who's not top 2 claim themselves to be top 3. There's a couple of them in Shanghai, Fudan University, Shanghai Jiaotong University, and Zhejiang University, and plenty of others claim themselves to be the top 3. Because the top 2 are from Beijing, Peking University, and Tsinghua University. You see this really interesting trend recently that from Zhejiang, which is situated in a very beautiful city called Hangzhou, there are a lot of technology companies over there. There's a robotics company that's been doing a really good job, and there's recently has been a wonderful gaming studio that produced one of the best games that ever came out of China about the journey to the West. And now there's AI, there's DeepSeek, and they were not even like AI companies. They were like doing quant trading before, and they just happened to have quite a lot of GPUs. They perhaps bought them like a long time ago for quant trading because like clearly there's a restriction on export. And these guys are like they're like you know what? Oh, let's just innovate. Let's just figure it out, right? And Zhejiang University has done a wonderful job and also Hangzhou City as a city by itself has done a wonderful job to number one attract a ton of talents and mostly domestic talents because China doesn't have, in my opinion, such a tradition of say having like talents coming from all over the world because like language barrier is a big barrier because not a lot of people speak Chinese. So that restricted Hangzhou, which is I guess less well known compared to like Shanghai or Beijing or Hong Kong to a lot of foreigners to even think about joining the city. But one thing is that they have a really good university for education, and number two is that their government has a lot of support for founders. I have several friends who went back to Hangzhou after graduating from MIT for startups, and they were basically telling me that they got a lot of like funding, and they got a lot of like they sometimes have some like free housing or free offices, which is just really nice if you're an early stage founder, right? And just over time, somehow this city has like not just all over the world, but also in China, outcompeted at so many like top resource teams or companies, which is incredible. I think that just brought me into thinking, right? Like, because if you look at OpenAI, there are a lot of students coming out from either China or India, Europe, U.S., all over the place, right? And then they were educated in the U.S. and eventually, become top researchers at OpenAI. Many of them are actually Asians as well, East Asians or South Asians. So this becomes like an interesting conversation or debate between the Chinese education system versus the U.S. or Western education system. Because I went through Chinese education system all the way until I finished high school. And man, that was like the hardest time in my life. Like when I was at university, when I was working at companies, I feel like it's like a piece of cake compared with my high school. And even at MIT, I sometimes felt like, oh my God, everything's so hard. Why is everyone so smart? I still didn't feel that. I still didn't feel that that was harder than my high school. So you can imagine like the severity of the competition for students to work incredibly hard, especially on STEM subjects like math, physics, chemistry, biology, all these kind of STEM subjects. And I guess like if you check the data for acceptance rates, I think the only place that could be comparable with like a university acceptance rate to China is probably India, IIT. I have some really good friends from IIT system. I think IIT is called, I think it's Indian Institute of Technology. Yeah, they have a few branches, but like some of the top ones. They also went through like this incredibly difficult system. I think also like for a lot of my French friends I met at MIT, they went through this either like Polytechnique or Centrale, SUPEC, Central. They have this, very, very dedicated engineering education for top engineers or top researchers. I think like for all these three places, right? Like it's very interesting how, very rigorous education could push people to like an extreme level so that unfortunately for a lot of people who cannot survive this would find it so hard, but like for people who are actually genius, they get trained so well so that it's like a combination between curiosity and hard work. It's not like, oh, just curiosity and then self-motivated and then you do great work. It's more like they're curious, they are incredibly smart, and they're pushed to the extreme level. So I think that's how like a lot of the innovation that's been like happening at this significant fast pace in the past, I don't know, 2 to 3 years. It's because like for the Chinese government, which invested in education since like the early 2000s, even if it's a system that a lot of people complain about, and I oftentimes also complain about it myself. But it provided such a good opportunity for people who just want to work hard. Doesn't matter where they come from. Doesn't matter if they have a very poor family. Doesn't matter if their dad is Bill Gates. You can just like, I don't know, move your way up, right? Like, I came from a very, like, I would say normal family in a normal city, because like I didn't come from those like big cities I mentioned earlier, Beijing, Shanghai, not even from Hangzhou. I'm from a very small city. My parents are just like middle class in that city, and they were in debt to support me to study abroad. Um, but I was imagining, if I stayed in China, like, cause I didn't really go through the Gaokao or the Chinese college entrance exam system. If I did that, I probably wouldn't be able to get into Zhejiang University. Like, it's so hard. So people coming from there is like top of the top. And well, I think that's a really good thing, because now you have like two giant talent pool competing with each other, which is Silicon Valley versus China model. Silicon Valley model is like they attract people from all over the world. China model is like they're betting the future of the country on the incredibly difficult education system since when you were a kid, and they believe that people can do incredible things. Um, and I don't know, like when I studied abroad, like I felt like people still have a lot of stereotypes on like Chinese people, because I think for the past generation, our population in general were um, overall we're poor and less educated. But in my generation, things has changed completely. The way we grow up is that everyone goes to school, everyone's studying incredibly hard. A lot of people do crazy, innovative things, and they win medals for math, for physics. They go to top universities, do great research, and eventually go to America or Europe. But these days, you see more people who either return to China, or they were just homegrown researchers. Like, yeah, it's amazing. You see these two pools of talents competing with each other, and I really hope that this is going to be more like collaborative instead of just purely for competition. And I think that's at the core of the open source concept, which is, guys, this is a great work that we've done, and we worked so hard on this, and this is how we did it. Um, yeah, use it and build on top of it and beat us, right? Instead of like, okay, hey world, we built this incredibly great model, $200 a month, right? And we're not sharing the secret source with anyone. I don't know. I think it's a very interesting dynamic that's happening right now. And I even saw this interesting quote from someone that someone like on Twitter slash X was saying that this is a war between the Chinese in China and the Chinese in America, because a lot of like top researchers from OpenAI who are tweeting about these kind of things these days are also like, if you look at their surname, there is also East Asian surname or Chinese surnames, right? But I don't know if they're like ABCs or what. ABC is like American born Chinese. Um, but yeah, it's very interesting. Like some people are joking that finally, the Tiger Mom model actually worked. So yeah, I probably spent too much time talking about education and this kind of thing, but I think this is like a fundamental, very, very interesting change on AI at least. And I think like it proves something, that which is sanction doesn't work, right? If sanction worked, like China is fucked. But my country did a very good job in AI. Even if like I was talking to a lot of founder friends in the past year or so, a lot of them were telling me that the U.S. fund for venture capital were not investing as much as the past 10 years, when like the B2C model was incredibly booming, like Alibaba, if you heard of it, um, Tencent, DD, which is a competitor of Lyft, Xiaohongshu, which is the one like a lot of Americans flooded into after the TikTok ban. Yeah, like US fund, VC fund were pretty much omnipresent in a lot of the consumer side of the innovation in China for tech. But in the past 2 years, it's been like decreasing quite a lot. For geopolitical reasons, the Biden administration was not very happy about U.S. funds investing massively in Chinese tech. So I think somehow this proved an alternative model for the rest of the world. Like, for founders in Europe or founders in India, for founders in Africa, for founders everywhere, like Australia, Middle East, anywhere, it proved that, sanctions don't work. Um, at the end of the day, hardwares will reach their physical um, restrictions, and it would just get better and better and cheaper. So the innovation or the talent pool is the actual compete, right? If you can really use well of your country's talent pool, that's like a huge, huge, huge good news for you. And I think India and Europe have a huge talent pool, right? Like, especially like the systems I was talking about. I think all I'm trying to say is that um, if the arrival of DeepSeek R1 reasoning model proves that we can innovate through pure talents in the AI industry, in the AI era, because chips is just a computational power, and it proves that 70% of the cost is not needed even for an almost equally performing model. Um, I'm sure like OpenAI is going to do so much more later. Like they have a wonderful team, they have a wonderful leadership, and there are plenty of like competitors of OpenAI like Claude, like XAI, like plenty of other smaller startups all over the world. Mistral in France, like all these places. I think it's going to be very interesting, like because it doesn't mean that um, Nvidia wins all, right? Like perhaps with some less good chips, you can also do a good job. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next topic. Like I was scrolling down some of the bullet points I listed. Um, Another thing I want to talk about is what does it mean for startups or students? Because I think the people, the community who need to adjust very dynamically towards change are startup founders and university students or high school students, because these people need to face all sorts of challenges immediately. Whereas if you work at Google, you probably don't feel much of a change, even if I'm sure they are trying to innovate internally with Gemini to integrate with their own products. But the urgency is probably less because it's not just about am I even in the right skill set to look for a job? Am I even in the right field to build for my company? Am I going to survive? Right. So what does this mean to founders and students? I think it means quite um, an interesting. It's very interesting. Number one is that previously people thought that the moat for AI is you're going to have the best model in the world, and then a lot of companies are just going to be crushed by models because every time OpenAI launches something, a bunch of startups is just going to die. But it turns out that models themselves don't have moat, like, um, because what is moat, right? Moat is cost and time. OpenAI spent so much money investing in their chips, investing in their models, investing in their talents, and if that is not a breakable thing, then that means most other companies, if they want to match OpenAI, they have to invest that much money as well, which kicked out most of the players in the world, right? But now it proved that it's not the case. So perhaps like there could be another 100 people team from somewhere with some resources in India or in France or in Germany, in the UK, all of a sudden create this like DeepSeek R1 competitor, which is open source and performing better and even outperform like ChatGPT or whatever. I think, yeah, it really interests me because what is the moat now, right, for startup founders? I saw this interesting thought, which is interface loyalty. What does that mean? It means that given the fact that most models are the same at the end of the day, they're all reasoning. They're scaling not just by piling up GPUs anymore, not just by piling up data anymore. They're scaling by using reinforcement learning to get better and better and better, and self-generating data to train itself. Like you're playing like chess or Go. Then, if the user that really loves your app for recording notes from meetings, or really likes your app about being my AI therapist, or really like your app about being my external brain or whatever, like all sorts of tools, right? If people really love your product, people really like some kind of interesting features of it, or people just really like you as a founder, or if you're an influencer, you have good distribution channel, people are going to feel loyal to your interface because behind that interface, like they're probably using multiple models, right? Like a good example is Perplexity. I'm sure plenty of startups were replicating Perplexity because like it's just leveraging internet search and asking questions to foundational models. And when I say it sounds very simple, but I'm pretty sure Perplexity did so much optimization behind it, or they perhaps have some kind of agents to deal with all sorts of edge cases. But like Perplexity could just switch their models behind, right? Like I saw their founder these past few days have been posting quite a lot on LinkedIn and X about they're integrating with R1 model from DeepSeek. Does Perplexity change after they switch their core model from something else to DeepSeek? No, people still think they're Perplexity, right? People already have developed this like concept that AI search is Perplexity, just like back then. Oh, search is Google. It's not Yahoo. It's not something else. It's Google. It's not Bing by Microsoft. And I think like Perplexity is building up this moat right now for interface loyalty by just create this great service at the beginning, and so that a lot of people will continue to use it and believe that this it's a great product. And like the immigrant inspiring story of the Indian founder of Perplexity has done a wonderful job. Arvind, is that how you pronounce his name? If anybody from India, please correct me. Arvind from Perplexity, he's been like posting a lot, and he's got this incredible charisma. People ask him about oh, is Perplexity just a wrapper? And he mentioned that no. Tell me one company that's not a wrapper, right? Like all the B2C company, B2B companies are wrappers on AWS, wrappers on Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud. And back then, everyone was a wrapper on Oracle databases, MySQL, right? And now just like people are switching between foundational models on their product. Everyone's a wrapper. But can you build a really good interface so that people love it and people link your brand with the thing it's doing, right? Perplexity is for AI search, right? Airbnb is for finding interesting homes. Uber and Lyft is for getting my ride wherever I am. No matter how many like competitors are out there, even if they're using completely the same services, they're probably cheaper. But a lot of people are still going to stick around with these huge brands for some reason, right? Network effect, viral effect, whatever. So I think that's very interesting. Like I think like even Andrew Ng, Professor Wanda, he mentioned that it's a very interesting time for building applications because the true mode is getting customer loyalty. I mean that's not the exact quote from him, but he said something like that, right? So for students, I think reasoning is a very interesting point for students. STEM education, I would say, is at the core of it is math. Built on top of math, you either learn about the reality of the society, the reality of the universe, or the reality of some algorithms. Math is reasoning. Or remember those days when we were just doing proofs, like doing problem sheets, doing proofs. What does it mean to students if an open source model can reason so well that at some point perhaps I haven't tried using DeepSeek to do reasoning on very complicated math theorems, but for basic ones I think it's going to do a good job. I think it's going to do I feel like it's going to do everyone a favor because back then I feel like when I was stuck on reasoning something, like I have to find some genius in the class to help me with that. Right now perhaps I can just find my teacher right at my fingertips, which is DeepSeek. Or, at some point, maybe OpenAI is going to decrease their price. I can use OpenAI O1. Or I can use each other to compete with each other. I tell one, hey, this is the answer reasoning from DeepSeek. I think yours is worse. Give me a better one. And vice versa, right? Let them compete with each other. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for students to realize that reasoning, you can self-teach reasoning by using the tool right. Because I'm sure a lot of people are just going to use it for, copying homework, and homework, the so-called homework helper is just, for the majority of the people is just copying. But for the truly competitive, like top talents in the world, I think, even if you don't have good resources, you don't have good access to, connections, you can figure out a way to reason and learn how to think. I think that's a wonderful thing. And of course, there's this debate about, is it still useful to learn computer science? Is it still a good time to learn analyzing data, learning machine learning? I think it's always important to learn these skills. You need to understand what is the fundamental thing behind these top technology. But also on top of that, it's very important to learn how to think, right? Like, for example, when you see these model talking or typing, you see that it's streaming itself. Why is it streaming itself, right? If you don't understand that, fundamentally it's because it's a generation model, right? It's generating the next word based on the probability that, what the next word could be. Then you wouldn't understand what's going on. If you're really interested, doing some, frontier work, you need to understand these things. I think, yeah, as a student, it's like a really wonderful time. And I was talking to a few university students in the past few weeks, like mainly in the UK, from like Oxford, Cambridge, University of London, UCL, Imperial, LSE. I think a lot of students are doing like a wonderful job these days. They dream much bigger than before, and they're thinking about building robots. They're thinking about building drones. They're thinking about building great AI agents to do really cool things, which is unimaginable before. And previously, I would imagine you would need a really good supervisor to guide you. Now you have the best supervisor who can reason right in front of you, which is really, really good, right? So guys, like, grab this opportunity and smash it with whatever you're doing, right? I think it's gonna be wonderful. Let me see if I have anything else that I'm missing. Yeah, perhaps let's go back to the topic of DeepSeek. What's next? I think Donald Trump is not going to be happy about this, and he's going to do a lot. He probably will put more sanctions on China for chips export, and I think China wouldn't step down on this. So you're going to see like this interesting dynamic between these two countries competing with each other. And as Chinese myself, I feel like I'm at a very lucky era of my time because I can understand both, right? If you think about like the founder of DeepSeek, most of his interviews are in Chinese. All like New York Times, Washington Post, and all these media are getting secondhand information from somewhere else. But if I could read Chinese, I can just read things. And there are a lot of top research and top startups coming out of China. And also I speak English, right? So anything that comes out of US or Europe or India, I can read them immediately. I think there will be more geopolitical competition, but at the same time, I really hope that this is moving towards a direction where open source is going to win, because that just helps everyone, right? As I mentioned probably in the earlier part of this video, if everyone wins, that means a really business-friendly environment that will support startups to just build great business use cases that will, as YC said, build something people want and iterate fast. I really believe, like at least for now, right? It's the golden age for building. It's a golden age for exploring. It's a golden age for learning. And it's not the golden age for learning just for the sake of learning. It's the golden age for learning through doing. Build some project, build some side project, do some startup, grab a coffee with a few friends, talk about some ideas, and then just prototype it. It could be software, it could be hardware, it could be anything. I'm very excited about this. Um, Actually, I haven't been this much excited for a long time. And today is actually the first day of Chinese New Year or Spring Festival, just to be inclusive. Um, yeah, happy Spring Festival, everyone. Um, yeah, it's a wonderful time to be alive and to be building. Yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you think. I don't even know if this video is gonna be helpful, but it's like some of my true thoughts about DeepSeek, OpenAI, AI in general. What does it mean for founders? What does it mean for students? What does it mean, between different education system? Probably this is like less of a video to make everyone feel panicking about, like, oh, China is getting ahead, US sucks. I'm Chinese, right? Like, I would be happy if that happens, to be honest, but, I'm also not happy if that happens in a way that's not, beneficial for the humanity. I think that tech should be more collaborative and open sourced than share with each other. And for me also, like, I care a lot about education, I care a lot about founding community, so I always think about, what I can provide some value for students and provide some value for startup founders and myself, trying to build. Yeah, let me know, like, ping me, DM me on X/Twitter, join my Discord, talk with me on LinkedIn. It's gonna be a fun 2025. Cool. 新年快乐. Happy New Year.